welcome into another edition lay edition of Scatter Thoughts, where Sky, give you scatter thoughts, things I've journaled or just made notes about throughout the week as we're streaming and creating content, and share it out with the community, hear you all's thoughts, and sometimes this turns into longer form content. Sometimes it's just a rant that lives in the world. So we're here again today. There's actually a couple things. I actually may record another edition of Scatter Thoughts right after this. But yeah, there's a couple things that are resonating with me this week very heavily. But I think the one I want to kind of surface a little bit more, and honestly, hear me out. Also, if you hear my heater in the background, no, you don't. Okay, I'm cold, and that ain't none of your business. Okay, so just let me live. But the one that's coming to the surface a little bit more, just like 51-49%, right, is the kind of current ideals in the community around carry culture. Now, honestly, as I say this, I actually feel this is going to be one of the shorter editions, because I really don't think this is controversial. If this is controversial, let me know in the comments, but I really don't feel like this is controversial. But I'm going to attempt to split it up into kind of like the two notes I made. Is one, people who do carries as a part of like content creation, and then just general carry culture. So I do want to separate those two out before anyone tries to grab their pitchforks. But yeah, in terms of talking about carry culture, on the whole, my stance is I don't support carry culture. I don't. I think regardless of if you're talking about Destiny 2, you're talking about another game, I don't think carry culture, and maybe this is like the most controversial thing I'll say today, but I don't think carry culture in any regard helps the community. I feel like it is a hindrance because it creates an expectation of labor, not only on the people like hosting the carries in terms of just like seeing them as like pack mules, or just seeing them as items, not real people. So there's like a dehumanizing effect, but also just the fact that, and I'm trying to find a way to say this, but I think there's a level of complacency. I don't want to say laziness. Laziness is where I'm trying to stay away from, because laziness can be interpreted in like an ableist way. But I do think there is a level of complacency that always I've seen in so many different communities, FPS, open world, it doesn't matter. There's always a level of complacency that comes with carry culture if folks know that there's somebody in the community that's going to give a carry. Point blank period. That's the statement. Fight your mama, not me. The reason I want to break it up into two different categories is one, and again, just to tackle this first. So again, you don't grab your pitchforks or grab them. I don't care. It's the internet. Do whatever you want. Just know if you do something wild, you could get blocked. But very serious. But the carry culture of people who do carries, in particular Destiny 2, I want to say this very clearly so folks don't think I am coming at anyone, but I know there are folks who do Grandmaster carries. I know there are folks who do Trials carries. I know there's folks who do all those different things, right? I think on the whole, those platforms and what they offer to the community, I don't think anything inherently is wrong with that, right? If someone is very skilled at Trials, for example, because I know it happens all the time, right? You see certain streamers who really only stream when Trials is active. They really don't have any content outside of that. And again, that's not a knock to them. That's just, it is what it is, right? So the fact that like they only come out when Trials is active, they host Trials carries, have hundreds, if not thousands, literal thousands of people in their chat trying to get a raffle, so on and so forth. And so the people who do that, and then people make a living off that. And so I'm not hating on that. I'm not talking down on that as what people are doing as like the item of them holding that space. That doesn't take away from my earlier point about carries themselves. So again, not talking about the people doing carries, but talking about the idea of carry itself, because again, taking Trials, for example, when you kind of have this ringer, if that's like the right terminology, I can't remember the phrasing, but like people who normally if I'm getting matched up, and again, just using an example of Trials here, if I'm getting matched up with people who are supposed to be in my bracket and I know that it's 3v3 and one of those one of those three people that we're facing is a ringer. It's a super sweat. It's someone who's super skilled and can basically carry the other team towards victory. Being in a space where that is happening is not a good feeling. It doesn't make me want to continue to engage in the game. It doesn't make me feel like I want to actually like spend hours in the game when I'm just going to get stomped on. Why is my desk making that noise? I don't know if y'all can hear it. It doesn't matter. But just the fact that like it's that phenomena, right? Where like from that standpoint, as like someone facing those teams, it doesn't feel good that you literally have one person on the team that like can snipe you, hand cannon skills off the charts. And again, we're not knocking that person for having skills. We're just saying in terms of like the balance from like an outsider perspective of someone who's facing those teams. And it just doesn't feel good. And I don't know anyone who's had an experience like that and been like, oh yeah, that felt great. That like literally there's two people, it's 3v3 and 2 out of 3 people basically did nothing. One person just like destroyed our whole team. I don't know anyone who's ever been recorded saying like, oh, that felt good. That was a fun time. Right. So there's that perspective of the carries, but then also the people who are getting carried, right. Being in a space where like, they're having the opportunity to go flawless. And again, we're continuing with the trials kind of analogy here, but again, they have the ability to go flawless, ability to like do all these things and have this, experience, get adept loot, all these different things. Again, I want to be very clear because like folks have goldfish memories. I'm not sitting here shitting on any other creator. I'm just talking about the phenomena. I personally myself have never had a trials carry, so I can't speak from experience, but seeing other people talk about like, hey, I joined XYZ stream and I got my first ever flawless. That's great. I love that for you. But also the underlying current of that to me still is not helpful for the community where we're in a space. And again, this is more transitioning to the larger issue or, the larger critique I have about carries. The idea that like community members aren't being pushed in a healthy way, but they're not being pushed to actually like improve upon the skills and actually do the thing. Now, the example, the kind of paradigm I'm going to attempt to pull, and maybe it doesn't make sense here, is with guardian ranks, even though y'all know my feelings about guardian ranks at this point. But, the one thing I will say is that the one thing I will appreciate about guardian ranks is you can't get carried to rank 11. I'm currently rank 11, and I've gone through all the things, but you can't get carried to rank 11. So there is some level of skill that you have to demonstrate. You have to be able to do all these different things, but in particular, there's several solo requirements: solo legend, lost sector, solo master, solo dungeon. There's several solo requirements where you have to be able to demonstrate your skill on your own. And I think that's valid because I think ultimately when we're in a space where there's a good chunk of activities that people can get carried through. People get carried through raids, people get carried through dungeons, people get carried through trials, as I said, Grandmaster Nightfalls, all those different things. And for me, when people are comfortable with that complacency, I do feel like ultimately, maybe the player themselves doesn't suffer because they're able to get the flawless clear or they're able to, get their conqueror title or whatever the case may be. But ultimately, I don't think it's healthy for the player base in a space where like we're in a space where those things are, you're able to go and get the glorious title because you had someone like carry you and help you get through comp, competitive PvP, like the different things. I think y'all get where I'm going at this point, but there are certain things that people can show off and flex and be like, oh, I've gone flawless, but weren't necessarily demonstrating their skill within that said activity, but rather having the ability to be carried. And again, this is not talking about these creators. That's not the thing I'm trying to pull out here. And again, these are scattered thoughts. And so, if you have feelings, feel less about like the way I'm portraying the information versus like what I'm actually trying to say. And honestly, I still don't think this is like super controversial, but for me, the reason why I posit all this to say is like, for me, the reason why I'm very clear in my community, and we just got the Discord set up. We have a more consistent, thankfully my work schedule has been consistent recently, so I've been able to have streams more consistently. The reason we have special days for new lights, the reason why we have special days for PvE helps, is because I truly believe in helping people gain the skill to do the thing. I don't think, as much as I would love every guardian in the world to be in my community, every guardian that's not toxic, to be a part of the community and like have all the friends in the world in this community, that's not my dream. My dream is that people are able to be in the community, meet new people. Again, I've found people who I genuinely think I'm going to be in fire teams and game with for the rest of the existence of Destiny, right? Really solid people. And I think you only do that when you're in healthy communities that have safe spaces for everyone, but also communities that are more geared towards allowing people to understand the skill, understand the activity that they're doing. If I carry you through dungeons, if I carry you through raids, that's great that you can say that we carry you through Last Wish and it's great. And you're like, oh, I got 1K and you never do 1K again. You can always go back and say like, oh, I have 1K, or like, oh, I've cleared Last Wish. But if someone asks you, like, oh, would you be comfortable like helping me get through the raid? Or would you be comfortable like helping Sherpa? If you've never been in a spot where you've actually had to learn the mechanics, actually had to like improve upon the skill, at least have some level of awareness, I just don't think it's going to be viable for you to be able to do that, right? And again, I really want to hit this point home. It's like, don't sit here and critique the way I'm framing this. Like, listen to the point I'm trying to get across. Again, it's scattered thoughts. These things are going to be scattered. But again, that's just one of the main things I wrote in my notes, is just like, again, not trying to say my community and the community we're growing here is perfect, but like, I want to be very clear from jump, as we're small and as we grow to getting bigger, that like, we're not in the business of like doing carries, and kind of seeing some hot takes recently about carry culture from like a couple FPS gamers and other things. Again, it wasn't directly about Destiny, but again, there's so many, it just brought so many memories to me about my Destiny experience, and seeing, as I'm trying to hop into an LFG, again, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but we'll say KWTD, like, know what to do, and just trying to get through the clear of a master dungeon, just trying to get through the clear of a raid, and like, people actually don't know what to do, right? And again, one, it's just an issue. Don't join LFG posts if you actually don't know what to do, like, point blank period. Like, don't be that person. Like, don't. Just don't. Like, legit don't. But it's also, to me, maybe there are people who have this false sense of knowledge, false sense of confidence around these things, because they're like, oh, I got carried through Flawless and Trials. Oh, I got carried through this GM before. I've done Lightblade before. It's like, sure, maybe you got carried through Lightblade, but like Lightblade, like several other GMs, not all GMs, but several other GMs are very mechanic heavy. So if you spawn things too fast, if you spawn things in the wrong order, if you're not prepared for certain encounters with the different enemies, you're gonna wipe, you're gonna fail. And for me, I don't think our carries, like, again, maybe I should also like classify, and I do want to hit this last point, but again, I do want to be very distinct about how I'm defining these things, right? Because for me, what's really the core difference between helps and carries is that I know helper streams. I know people who legit will sit there for 3 hours of their stream and actually take the time to help people understand. And sure, it took 3 hours, but that person or those people leaving that raid or leaving that account, they know the mechanics. They know how to do the thing. And so they can take that confidence forward and actually be a productive member of the community, because then they can join another LFG without that streamer, without that content creator, and be like, you know what? I actually feel comfortable helping a new light. I feel comfortable helping someone. Now I have 5 clears. I feel comfortable helping somebody with 1 clear. For me, those are the things that make the community better, not necessarily the spaces where, again, the difference between that and carries, where people are having to do minimal engagement. And again, I want to stray away from like the terminology of lazy and effort, because those can be interpreted in various ways. But again, if you're not having to put in the same or similar level of effort as your fire team members, yet you still get the loot, you still get the in-game activity clear, you're still able to get the flawless. To me, there's such a significant gap that continues to widen as that happens when we see people engage. And again, it could be trials, it could be a raid, it could be a dungeon, it could be a GM, whatever. Being in those spaces where like I just don't know that it's healthy for the community. I think ultimately I don't know, I'm looking at this third point right now, and it's kind of, I don't know, if it like I'm reading it as I'm talking, it kind of feels harsh. So I don't want to say it because I already feel like folks can potentially misinterpret what I'm trying to say here. But ultimately, I do think it impacts, if not deters to some degree, detracts to some degree, the health of the community when we have imbalance of people who have clears, have emblems, have achievements in games based on carries versus based on actually understanding the mechanics and understanding how things go. Because ultimately, I think it has, and my final point, I think it harms the longevity of the community when people are sitting here on their high horses saying that, oh, I have 10 clears of, maybe not 10, but like, oh, I have 5 clears of Last Wish, but like, you actually never did anything other than ad clear, and you were on like carry streams the whole time. Again, I want to be very clear. I'm not critiquing people whose majority of their content is like carries. If that's their thing, that's their thing. I'm not critiquing that. I'm critiquing the impact of those carries on the community, because then when I go into an LFG and I'm like, know what to do, or I'm like, hey, we want folks with like, again, you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you can say, you know, I would like at least 5 clears. If you're going to join, at like that you have at least 5 clears, so on and so forth. Those parameters get invalidated when we have those people who have some of those metrics, but ultimately don't know what to do. Actually, don't know the mechanics. Actually, don't know that like when you're going into a certain boss fight, that like I don't know, just even little things. I've been in VOG, which is to this day, this would be my last point. VOG to this day is considered one of the easiest raids, Vault of Glass, and being in a space where even as recent as, again, we're in like week 7 of Lightfall season of Defiance, and it was like week 2 or 3, and you know, it was whenever the first time Vault of Glass was on the rotator for the weekly raid rotator, and we're doing it. It was a know what to do group, and there's several moments throughout the raid where it was like there are a couple of people who, again, we didn't want to be like jerks about it, but it was like it was just kind of seemed that they didn't know what to do. And I think it came to a particular point where we were doing the gatekeeper encounter, and you know, obviously, again, I won't go through the whole mechanic, but you have to juggle the shield, right, back and forth to the different portals, all those different things, and oh Lord, it was frustrating. Thankfully, we're in a group of cool people who, you know, weren't bullying anybody or saying any things, but it was visually, you could hear in folks' tone that folks were getting frustrated because we had wiped at least 8 or 9 times. Because like people just like said they knew what to do, but like actually had, you know, not done the encounter. And my thing is like, if everyone says they know what to do, I don't always feel like I have to play support. I don't always have to feel like I have to play the runner role, the person who goes to grab the relic or the person who goes to do a thing. If people truly know what to do, for me, that allows me the opportunity to play a different role. Maybe I want to be outside the portal and just, you know, kill the Minotaur. You know, like it allows those opportunities. But when people aren't fully honest about what they know, yet are able to flex and say, I have this emblem, I have this clear, for me, and to a certain extent, I guess I can understand a fake it till you make it strategy, but like when it comes down to it, carries versus helps, I do think just have a harm, a level of harm to the community that I don't think in the long term, especially. And again, this was the last point I was going to say. I said that like last point 3 times, but and the longevity of the game, that this is truly my last point, it impacts because I feel like people get on their high horse. They have this feeling of superiority because they can say, I went flawless or I've done whatever. Again, going back to the trials example, but you went flawless or you've gone flawless multiple times. Again, this is not really trying to dunk on people. This is just talking about what you can literally go and see. Like people who have like flawless achievements in like PvP, for example, but like their other stats don't match that. You know, so for me, it's just like being in a space where that people get the superiority complex and then it bleeds down into new lights where like now you're dunking on new lights. Now you feel superior to new lights when you actually yourself don't actually truly know the mechanics. You actually truly don't understand everything that is offered there. And for me, I don't know. That's like the core point is like the longevity of the game is dependent on us being able to foster a healthy community, and a part of that community is bringing in new people. And as we get new expansions, as we get new seasons, obviously the final shape and the end of the Light and Dark saga is coming. But again, we don't know if it's still going to be a live service game. We don't know if Destiny 3 is coming. We don't know what's next. But what I do believe is with the time we have and the space that we've been given, at least considering, I think that would be my call to action. Even if you don't want to be like, put an end to all carry culture, I would say at least considering the impact that carry culture has and consistently, and that's a key word I'm going to use, consistently being in a space where people are being pulled through, carried through encounters and activities, not learning the mechanics, but still being able to get the loot, get the achievement, get the emblem, get all those different things, and how that impacts the community. Again, just consider what that impact can be. Again, not everyone has to be a PV help stream. Not everyone has to be out here teaching people, because not everybody should be teaching people, because some folks just don't have the patience for it. I myself, I'm still learning and growing in my patience on that. But the fact is, like, yeah, that was just something that really, to me, was I don't want to say bothering me, but it was just like I saw some discourse on Twitter, and it just really made me think about like how carry culture is impacting the community. And I think it is potentially one of those silent killers of the community when people get carried through activities, then get this superiority complex, like they've actually, you know, learned the mechanic, are really like skilled in the thing, and then kind of again dunk on other people and make things toxic for the community. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm going to end it for today. I have like a couple more points, but I'm reading them back and it kind of seems a little bit harsh. And I don't want this to come off harsh. I just wanted to come this off as like what it is. I'm sincerely concerned about this. It's something I've been concerned about for a while, but I think this past week and some of the discourse I've seen really impacted me. And so, yeah, I don't think it's controversial, but yeah, I'd love to know what folks' thoughts are on this, on carry culture. Do you think it's actually like an issue? Do you actually think it's worth like even discussing? Yes or no? You know, as long as you're not being toxic in the comments, you know, I'll respond. But like for me, it is something that like as we're in this current, again, especially as we're currently in GM, the GM season. GM's just released what two weeks ago at this point. And seeing a lot of those grandmaster carries, not helps, carries, being in a space where like, yeah, I love that you got the clear. I love that you're able to get through whatever, right? But seeing some of these, and again, that's why I'm not talking about the creators, because some of these creators I support who have like 1,000 people in their stream, and I love that they're able to help community members get through content. And you cannot distort what I'm saying here. I don't think that in itself is bad. I think the attitude and I think the subtext that is formed as people get carried through content without the nudge, without the encouragement to be like, hey, I'm glad you got the carry. I'm glad that we're able to do this for you today. But also I'd encourage you to like actually learn the mechanics of this GM, actually like be at the proper light level, actually have the best loadout for trials and actually going into it so you can develop the skill yourself and then pass that skill and those lessons on to others. But yeah, let me know what y'all think. That's where we're at for today. I probably am going to record another one right after this. But yeah, there's a couple things that are brewing with me this week. But look forward to hearing and seeing what folks have to say about this one. What are your thoughts on carry culture? Good, bad, indifferent? What's the vibe? Looking forward to hearing from y'all soon. Peace.